How's it going, everybody? My name is Cam White, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope. What the fuck is going on in the universe for October 5th through October 11th of 2020? Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I hope times are good for you right now, or at least that you can be grateful for what is going on. There is good news. There is hope, I think, with this week. And I don't think it's necessarily a light at the end of the tunnel. However, this week is fairly easy with how the past few weeks it's just been like one thing after another. Don't get me wrong. Next week, shit gets pretty crazy, especially at the end of this week or starting the end of this week. However, the majority of this week's actually pretty calm for the most part. So I think that's good, if you're just wanting things to not go super, super fast, because the rest of this month's pretty crazy. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Monday, really the only thing we've got going on Monday is just that the moon's going to be in the later degrees of Taurus, making a trine to Saturn. So, whoops. Okay, there we go. So, is this the right day, October 12th? Oh, man, I'm way off. Oh, no. Oh, almost the right day. Okay, so here we are. We have the moon, late degrees of Taurus applying to Saturn, right? We just got off this full moon in Aries, which was wild, by the way. I don't know if you guys felt that, if you were on the same level of existence that I am, because that full moon was crazy. But anyway, with the moon, now starting to dim out in light, going into Taurus, it's trying to find more of a comfort zone. The moon in Taurus is trying to find more stability, trying to find more peace, right? The moon in Aries is like, this is what we're doing. This is what's active. This is what we're engaged in. And the moon in Taurus is like, all right, how do we get comfortable with that? How do we make that, how do we stabilize that? How do we find security in that, in those actions, in that, application, in that new beginning? And as it's making a trine to Saturn, Saturn's direct now, Pluto's direct now, Jupiter's direct now. There's a lot of things that are, it's so crazy. I've been feeling it really, just, I guess, being able to just pay more attention to how the energy kind of changes. And it's like, when Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter were retrograde, it was like, when we got trines to them, it was like you were trying really, it was like you would be able to try really hard to attain something, but that attainment wasn't necessarily like a good final product. It didn't feel rewarding, or it didn't feel stabilizing like Saturn would want it, right? With Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto now direct, with that moon in Taurus trining it, there is this sense of like, now that you are with this full moon in Aries, right? Like, what was the new thing that began? What's the new thing that you're engaged in, that you're doing, that you're actively pursuing? Or I should say with Mars retrograde, that you're actively, changing up. Now that the moon's in Taurus, where are we comfortable? Where can we get grounded? With that trining Saturn, there's this sense of like stuff actually moving forward. Like, oh, hey, it is easy. Like, if I just, discipline myself and I, have a system or some type of efficient way to work through this thing, or to get through this thing, things work. The moon in Taurus is just getting, comfortable, finding security. And I just think with Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto now direct, it's just easier to enjoy. It's going to be easier to see. So there is some comfort when we go into Monday. However, then we go into Tuesday, and that's when the moon goes into Gemini, and it will initially square Venus earlier in the day. However, that's kind of like really the only thing. And it's like, it squares it, and then, of course it leaves, and the moon's just kind of doing its own thing. So on Tuesday, as the moon goes into Gemini, the moon, I always think the moon's ingress from Taurus to Gemini is really funny, because it's like, moon's in Taurus, right? We're comfortable, we're chilling, and then it's like, since I used to DJ weddings a lot, it reminds me of the transition from dinner to not necessarily dancing, but right before dancing and toast. It's like right when dinner starts, right? Everyone's eating. It's usually somewhat quiet because everyone's eating, but once everyone's done eating, then everyone just wants to chat and talk and hang out. And there's like, now that you're comfortable, now that you're fed, it's easy to express. It's easy to get it's easy to get your words coming out of you. And with the moon going into Gemini on Tuesday, now that things are kind of working in a new way, now that things are things kind of feel different, right? So that moon in Gemini is going to make us go, how are we seeing things different? How do I feel things differently? There's going to be a lot of opportunity to communicate, to talk to other people, to share your ideas. Just one big thing is with the moon being in Gemini, making the initial square to Venus, I think one of the things that you'll see is like Venus and Virgo being like, how can I perfect this? How can I make this better? It's like, oh, things are starting to work out good now. Like, how can I make it even better, right? Like, we can't just fucking accept what we have. And with Venus and Virgo trying to be a little bit more nitpicky, the moon in Gemini is kind of going like, oh, I've got an idea this way, or I can see it that way, or, there's just a lot of mind movement, a lot of chatter going on in the brain. And as that squares Venus and Virgo, it's going to be hard to like come up with better ideas. Don't be so nitpicky. Don't be so hard on yourself and like work yourself into a box or corner yourself in some idea. It's going to be easy to go. It's just don't be super picky and don't be hard on yourself, because otherwise you're just going to stress yourself out. Because also the moon really isn't doing anything else while it's in Gemini on Tuesday. It's just kind of loudly squaring Venus, where Venus is really picky right now in Virgo. So don't feed into that too much. Don't give that too much energy. But this would be a good idea just to write down, or a good day to just write down your ideas, get some thoughts clear, and maybe bounce ideas off with people. But also that feedback might be a little bit weird because it's Venus and Virgo. Anyway, we get to Wednesday, and that's when we have Mercury opposite Uranus. Now, I don't think I got to tell you when I say something significant is probably going to come up in the news. Like, for sure. As if that's not already happening, there's still more to come. And it's probably going to happen when Mercury conjoins Uranus. However, also notice that on Wednesday, during the Mercury opposition to Uranus, the moon is also going to be on top of the North Node and making a sextile to Mars. So I think this is significant because, for one, this is Mercury opposite Uranus, right? Things are coming up unhinged. This is kind of like, what's that cat? Like, there are certain TV shows that are just so good for analogies, and one of them is Hoarders. Hoarders is so good. The other one is that fucking, I don't watch any TV, so I don't even know what these shows are called. It's the one where the hillbillies and they stick their hands in the water and they just like grab a catfish out of nowhere. That's very Mercury and Scorpio opposite Uranus. It's like so much like pulling something out underneath that was hidden, that was, underneath the surface, and you rip it out and it's like, whoa. But instead of like, you reaching down expecting to grab a catfish, you grab like another funny show. Have you guys ever seen River Monsters? God, that show is so fucking crazy. But like, imagine you're a catfish person just sticking your hand in random river water to grab a catfish because that's what you're into, and then you grab not a catfish and something completely different, something you were not expecting, and maybe it bites you, maybe it just scares you, I don't know. Mercury opposite Uranus, like, expect something to come out of the woodwork, something to come up hidden that's going to be shocking, that's going to be destabilizing. That is the key word here. Scorpio and Taurus, they're fixed signs, and in fact, in my opinion, they're the most fixed signs. And with Mercury being about messages and ideas and our communication, Uranus, revolution, and extreme ups and downs, unpredictability, just kind of expect something to just pop off. Expect something to go wrong. Expect something to not work. Expect it to be destabilizing. Expect it to be something that's not necessarily like, oh, I was expecting a problem with that. Expect it to be something you weren't necessarily expecting to have a problem with. It's just going to be frustrating, but, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things that you're going to have to get through. And I think it's going to be funny because on the news level, it's going to be pretty crazy. On the personal level, for all of us individuals here, there's going to be like this sense of annoyance, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work anymore, that's got to be changed, that's an issue, and it's going to kind of stay that way for a minute. The biggest thing though with like it being in Scorpio and Taurus too is just having patience, not letting things get to you that much. Trying to think of any other really good advice. Just don't let it get to you that much. Just try to take it one step at a time. I think there is just going to be, this could be, and with Mercury too, this is not only like random things happening that you kind of didn't expect, but this could also be like a revolutionary thought. Like, this is Mercury and Scorpio. This could be like, something that you didn't think you liked before. Like, let's say, you were one of those weird people that are like, I don't like sushi. And then you actually try it one day and you're like, holy shit, sushi's actually great. And then you become like a sushi chef or something like that. Like Uranus or Mercury opposite Uranus here, there's some type of, yes, I think there's some bad conflict here. It's an opposition, right? It's something that's destabilizing, something that's like, whoa, that's kind of shocking. It's not necessarily like a good shock. I feel like that would be like Mercury conjoining Uranus would be like, oh, like, whoa, look at all these, this new cool stuff. Mercury opposite Uranus is like, this is going to be kind of, not agreeable. And so I think with it, yeah, in my opinion, there's good in everything, but we just may not know what that is for a minute. And personally, it's just one of those things. Just expect it on Wednesday. That's all I can really say is just expect it coming on Wednesday. And the other thing on Wednesday is the moon's on top of the North Node. I think also, as what I'll refer to as what you'll see in the news, this is hitting a very sensitive point. And I just think what happens on Wednesday on a mundane level is going to, for one, be really loud, also be more important later on down the road. However, I also believe that is true on a personal level here, because with the moon on the North Node, this is kind of like taking too much. It's overstimulation. It's like, when like, have you ever been at a party, you see someone who like does too much coke and they just talk and jabber and jabber. Like that's moon in Gemini on top of the North Node, just yap, just talk. And it's like, it's a little bit exhausting. It's mental gymnastics is what I'd like to call the moon in Gemini on top of the North Node. And so don't exhaust yourself mentally for things to make sense, right? Just let it come to you. You don't need to put all that effort into it. You don't need to also consume all of that much. With the moon in Gemini, know when to, put your phone down, know when to end the conversation, know when to walk away from the conversation. It's going to be easy to be fed into. It's going to be easy to be dragged into it. And so I think you're going to see issues and difficulties with that. However, your biggest thing is just, with the moon on top of the North Node, there's this hunger to understand, right? There's this hunger, there's this urge, there's this need to know the information. But once you have it, put it aside. You don't need to think about it and go a million miles an hour in your brain all day long. Like on Wednesday, if you feel like your anxiety's popping up or you're just running around in circles up there, just try to catch yourself and just try to stop. I'm not saying, oh, you can, but at least be acknowledging, be like, maybe you just need to calm down a little bit because the moon's in Gemini. And if you are going to go in if you are going to have mental gymnastics, if you are going to go a million miles an hour, do it about something positive. And with the moon on the North Node, this is what I kind of wanted to mention is, the eclipses are in Gemini right now, right? What is the information that we're getting, that we're receiving, that we're learning about? And how is this new information shaping our beliefs? Because the South Node's in Sagittarius right now, we're really letting go a lot of what we used to believe, a lot of what our vision, a lot of what our outlook used to be, a lot of our sense of religion or spirituality is changing too. It's, we're going through a metamorphosis as we learn new things. And as the moon's conjoining the North Node, what are you learning? And how is that changing things? You know what I mean? I also look at what houses rule, Gemini and Sagittarius rule. What's changing in that area? And try to keep more of a focus on the long-term change, not necessarily so much what's in your face day to day. Anyway, hold on. Need some seltzer. So we go into Thursday. This is when things kind of get rough. The beginning of the week's honestly pretty easy. There's a lot of time to, be with yourself and not have too much going on. The Mercury opposition is going to be a little wild. But then we get into Thursday and the moon goes into Cancer and trines Mercury. This is where conversations will be had. Things will be said. The moon going from Gemini into Cancer is going from like, okay, the moon in Gemini is like when you're thinking about all of your ideas and just kind of, what's the word? Like, when you kind of just like word vomit on a piece of paper. The difference of like the moon in Gemini going to Cancer is like when you kind of just word vomit your ideas to where you then start to prioritize and you start to go, okay, what do I need the most out of this list? Or what do I need the most out of this? What's the most important thing here? What is of necessity? What is, what are your priorities? And as the moon goes into Cancer, there's more of this reflection and more of this investment into like hey, right now I need to just take care of what my needs are. I just need to, let me get the priorities handled. And as the moon, it's not going to be doing it until way later in the evening, but as the moon does make a trine to Mercury, there is this ultimate sense of, with Mercury and Scorpio, there's a lot of fears coming up, right? There's a lot of unknowns coming up. It's Mercury and Scorpio, right? Underneath you, if you ever watch the show River Monsters, you will be scarred forever because you go to a river and you're like, I don't know what the fuck is in that river. Any fucking thing could be in that river. And so as the moon's trining Mercury there, it's kind of like, now that I kind of see that there's some raw realities going on, that I feel like the Mercury and Scorpio opposite Uranus is kind of like a wake-up call, if anything. There's just some realizations where you go, okay, maybe I wandered too far into the woods. Maybe I kind of got myself at something invested that's a little bit too hardcore for me or a little bit too intense. As the moon goes into Cancer, this is kind of like, hey, you don't have to go 100% all the time. If you're getting a little exhausted, if you're getting a little spooked, slow down a little bit, recuperate yourself. And as the moon goes into Cancer too, like, what sucks is that it's not, it begins is what I want to say, because the moon is, and it's also the one thing too I want to say is the moon's going to be sextiling Venus, but honestly, Venus and Virgo, just make yourself happy by cleaning stuff. Just clean stuff, get organized, and that's what you can do to make Venus and Virgo happy. Maybe communicate how you feel too. But I feel like with the moon sextiling Venus, with that trine to Mercury, good time to have a conversation, good time to just get your needs met. But as it goes into Cancer, it gets really hard because now the moon, as we go into tomorrow on, what's it called? What's today? What day are we on? Thursday? As we go into Friday, this is when we're going to have the moon make an opposition to Jupiter and then Pluto. The moon's going to be trining Neptune, all while Mars is squaring Pluto. I know that's kind of a lot, so let's break it down. The reason I'm saying that this is going to get hard, starting especially on Thursday, is because once the moon enters Cancer, it's eventually going to make that square to the sun, go opposite Jupiter and Pluto, and then eventually Saturn, and eventually square Mars. And it is trining Neptune and whatnot. There's this, the moon's kind of going through a lot, you know what I mean? Like, the moon in Cancer, as it's receiving this square from the sun, trine from Mercury, sextile from Venus, opposition from Jupiter, Pluto, like, everyone's yelling at the moon in Cancer. And like, the last thing you want to do, especially if you have a moon in Cancer, you probably don't want a bunch of people to be yelling at you and telling you what to think or what to do. As the moon is in Cancer, for one, as it's trining Neptune, it's going to get easy to like make up stories, to kind of blow things out of proportion, be kind of confused, and it's going to be really easy to let the confusion of a situation polarize your emotions and swing you one way or another. So there's the big thing with the moon, it's trining Neptune, if you don't have all the facts and if you don't see everything clearly and that's scaring you, like, you don't have to do things at that moment. But the other thing that I would suggest while the moon is trining Neptune is really tuning into your intuition. Like, how can you decipher what is real and what is not real for you? And that's going to be important. The moon squaring the sun, right? Which, I usually don't talk about the luminaries making aspects to each other, but the sun's in Libra going, well, I don't know, maybe this way, maybe that way, it could be here, it could be there. And the moon in Cancer is going, well, great, now I'm insecure because I don't know what I want. The sun in Libra over here ain't fucking helping me make a decision. And then the moon's also opposite Jupiter here. We've been talking about this all year of the moon in Cancer, when it's opposite this Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto stuff, is like, what are my needs versus what do I have? And we're going to talk about more of this for tomorrow. But with the sun in Libra, there's delegation. There's not always an abundance of things. And that's not to mean that there's scarcity, but it's with this astrology, it's clear that there's a lack of something, and it's going to be important to not utilize or waste your resources or your energy or your time on something if you don't have it. And the way to look at this is like, sure, the sun's in Libra, we want the best of both worlds, but sometimes we do have to pick a side or an option that is going to be, we can't get both. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We got to pick one, right? And as the sun is squaring Jupiter, which is going to be more tomorrow, this is kind of realizing like, hey, this was a hard summer. We didn't, as if we were all squirrels, we didn't get all of the fucking acorns that we needed for the winter. So we can't eat one acorn a day. We got to eat like a third of an acorn a day. And what I'm trying to explain here is there's just going to be this thing of like, hey, how do we literally conserve our energy? How do we, what is a priority? What matters in this moment? The sun's in Libra. Things are getting darker. It's getting, how, and also too, how can you make things easier on yourself rather than wasting your time trying to make decisions and go this way, go that way. Just make things simple, make things efficient. Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto are moving forward right now, right? This isn't a time to reflect on everything and look at everything through this, macrocosmic perspective. This is very much like, hey, just make a decision in the moment, take care of it right now. You'll figure it out as you go along. Just don't stop the line, essentially. Mars is squaring Pluto. I think you're gonna see this more just in the news in general. And I don't even really don't want to talk about that. On a personal level, though, with Mars square Pluto, this is kind of like that moment that I don't want to say that breaks you, but when if you've ever worked hard, if you've ever put a lot of effort into something and it doesn't work the way that you want it to, there's a moment that you get that just like it almost is just like it's you snap and you're like, oh, like I can't, like this sucks, like I can't go on, this is hard, this is fucking killing me, and you just let yourself become angry, you let yourself become upset. Like it's just that moment where you go like, oh, haha, cool, like this sucks, but then there's that moment you let yourself become angry. I feel like this is one of those moments. I think that's both a good and a bad thing is to let that happen. I think in one sense we all kind of need that snap. I really don't like that saying of like, oh, don't break, bend. It's kind of like, well, sometimes those fucking snapping moments are really fucking important. Like, you know what I mean? If you're just gonna let everything kind of squeeze by, a break is like, no, this is something that crosses the line. This is where your boundary is. With the Mars square Pluto, it's like, let yourself have that moment of tension being cut, of tension breaking loose. That might propel you to do something. And also it just feels good, because one thing too that you get with those break moments is you're literally surrendering to your anger. You're literally surrendering to your frustration. You're surrendering to your heart is what you're really fucking doing. But I think with Mars squaring Pluto, there's frustration. There is things not moving as fast as you want. And I think there's also too a sense of scarcity, like not scarcity as in lack of, but scarcity as in like, or I should say it is scary. It is terrifying almost in a sense. Like Mars square Pluto is like, oh, if you've ever, this is kind of like if you were like bullied in school or whatever, and you try to stand up to the bully and, that bully hits you pretty hard and you're like, oh shit, like this is actually like, maybe I can't stand up for myself. Maybe I can't fight this. I got myself into something a little bit too big. If you feel like you've got yourself invested into something too big, feel that feeling. That feeling is there for a reason. That's either going to make you go, maybe I should back out of this and this is too much to invest with, or you got to go, okay, this is way more than I bargained for, so I need to change my game plan and I need to step it up for myself. I always say you should step it up for yourself, but you don't fucking have to. But I think with Mars square Pluto and in these really challenging times, challenge yourself, get something out of it. Don't just go through this Mars retrograde for nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's, in my opinion, some of the, it's so shitty going through a hard time not to learn something from it or not to at least gain something from it, right? So I think just with Mars square Pluto, just fucking, let it happen. That's going to be the theme for this week. Just let it happen. You can listen to that Tame Impala song. So then we get to Saturday and things get even crazier. So, like I said, we are going to be having the Sun square Jupiter. And the big thing I really wanted to hit about that is like, this is kind of like, just, crunching the numbers here and going, all right, shit's kind of, this is what we have. This is what works, and this is Jupiter stuff and Sun stuff. This is our confidence. This is how we feel. This is our belief system. This is our worldview. And, it's not, this isn't Jupiter and Sagittarius. We're not, oh boy, what's going to happen next? This is like Jupiter and Capricorn. Like, all right, let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's be a little bit more, let's have some foresight. Let's ground our beliefs in something that's more realistic. And the Sun in Libra is like, let's think about sustainability, not just, energy output. Rather than like the Sun in Aries, right? It's like, what's the loudest we can turn, or it's like for a Tesla car, for example, like the Sun in Aries is like, how fast can that battery make that car go, versus the Sun in Libra is like, how long can that battery last? And with the Sun in Libra squaring Jupiter, there's this like, okay, if you are going to go out on a Saturday night and your phone only has 40%, and that, like, we're all so fucking addicted to our phones that we know, like, the timing of, like, how long we have with our battery life. Like, if you know that you don't have a lot of battery life, you're not going to be spending a lot of time on your phone, so you can make it last longer, right? Like, that's what we got to do here on Saturday. You can look at that as a sacrifice. You can look at that as, hey, it's not to say that you can't. You could go on your phone all night long, but it's going to die before midnight. And then it's like, well, then how are you going to call Uber home? How are you going to get a hold of your friends if you can't find them? Whatever the fuck it is. So do you inconvenience yourself later, or do you sacrifice in the moment? And that's what Saturday really looks like. The other reason I say that is with the moon first making a square to Mars and then going opposite Saturn before it enters Leo. This is what's that stupid game? Oh, pinball. This is the moon's just bing, 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 bing between all these fucking planets in Cancer. And it's going to make that square to Mars initially earlier in Saturday, actually more towards like Friday night, Saturday morning. And that's just going to be, if you're trying to save your phone battery, you're going to catch yourself being on your phone and go, fuck, I can't be on my phone. Like, and then you got to like find something else to do. There's this like, slap of the hand motion with the moon squaring Mars, being like, no, that's not going to work. No, I can't do that. I have to resist the need, which is very Mars and Aries retrograde square moon in Cancer. Resist the need, resist the urge. And as the moon goes opposite Saturn, though, this is where, with the moon going opposite Saturn and then going into Leo, there's this like kind of cockiness of like, oh, well, I need to check my timeline for whatever reason. And you kind of convince yourself that like, oh, I can do whatever it is I want, because the moon then goes into Leo and you're like, I'm the shit. But as the moon goes opposite Saturn, try not to just like break all your boundaries or break your commitment or your word. It's going to be easy to, but I think it's also going to be really easy during this time to just prioritize. Like, this is not a time where you can just throw everything on your plate and be like, yeah, I'll do all this extra work. Yeah, I'll take all these extra commitments. Just do what you can, do what's going to work for you. And then as the moon goes into Leo, later on Saturday, that's when our confidence is going to be kind of going up. That's when things are going to get kind of more heartfelt. And then also Venus trines Uranus on Saturday, which I also think, that's going to be a big news day on Saturday. I already talked about that in my October horoscope. Make sure you guys check that out if you haven't. But Venus trining Uranus, I do think that there's going to be space for there to be some type of breakthrough opportunity, some type of realization, some type of, look at this handy thing that I kind of figured out. Like, let's say you go, okay, I gotta save my phone battery, but then the Uber that you call to come pick you up, they're like, oh, I've got a phone charger. So then you're able to charge your phone in the car. And it's like, oh, well, that worked out. You know what I mean? You get a little bit of juice going there. Or maybe you're at a club where they've got phone chargers or something like that. With Venus trining Uranus, it's really nifty. It's really neat. It's kind of off topic. But something cool is definitely going to come up. I would just look at what houses your Taurus and Virgo rule, and where you're going to be having some type of aesthetic innovation is the way that I would look at it. But then we go to Sunday, And that's actually when we have the Jupiter-Neptune sextile. And this is the third and final one, I believe. This is the third and final one. With the moon squaring Mars. So with Jupiter-Neptune sextile, I talked about this in the October horoscope too. It's sometimes being grounded in reality, or sometimes just having more of a not being so not I'm not saying not being optimistic, but just, you know, knowing that having your optimism more established in reality than in idealism. I feel like that can actually create a lot more dreamlike scenarios than just hoping for the best, you know, because when your vision is something that's realistic, something that's attainable, the reality of you achieving it and getting it is, for one, easier, and it's also just makes you feel better because you go, wow, like, holy shit, I was able to do that. I think Jupiter in Capricorn sextiling Neptune in Pisces is very much like, hey, you know, if you're just realistic about some shit, like, some good shit can kind of happen, and it can even be a little bit better than you kind of imagined if you actually just keep it more simple, if you just keep it more realistic. And of course, too, this is Jupiter in Capricorn, while it's applying to Pluto, and it's also on its way to conjoin Saturn too. There's a lot of learning that we're going through with Jupiter in Capricorn, of, you know, changing our beliefs, changing our connection to our mind, to our worldview, and how this, whatever the fuck this is, makes sense to us. A lot of that's going through a lot of really dramatic infrastructure changes, and so we're finally at the point where it's going like, oh, I see how the new system actually works. It's like if you've ever been a server before and they change the system on you, the POS. It's like at first you're like, oh, fuck this new system, and then you use this new system for a little while. You're like, hey, this new system's actually way better than the old system. Sometimes, you know, change is one of the hardest things to ever do, even though it's the constant thing. But what's funny about change is it's, you always look into it and you go, fuck, I don't want to make these changes. And then after you make the changes, you're like, man, that was the best decision I made. That worked out so well for me. And I just feel like we're finally getting to that part of the story with Jupiter on its way to Pluto and Saturn. We're not there yet. However, we're getting there. But as Jupiter does sextile Neptune, there's that, like, you know, oh, okay, I kind of see how this works. I kind of see how this is making things the way that I'm envisioning them, the way that Neptune is kind of, you know, not necessarily playing tricks on you, but Neptune's also your creative vision, like your dreams in a sense. And so Jupiter and Capricorn's like, hey, you know, if you just do stuff, if you just like do the work, you can make your dreams come true. But then also on Sunday we have the moon squaring. I said moon squaring Mars. What? No, I meant moon squaring Mercury. If this is going to be a classic Mercury retrograde for you, or you get in some type of miscommunication, it's probably going to be on the 11th, because that moon in Leo squaring Mercury, this probably isn't a good day to have an intense conversation, because both parties are going to be dramatic. It's Mercury and Scorpio versus moon and Leo. You know, who's more emotionally offended. There's also, it's the moon and Leo squaring Mercury. A lot of our pride can get in the way of a lot of our pride. You know, the heat of the moment can make us say stuff that way I think we might later on regret. And I just think on the moons, with the moon squaring Mercury, just try not to let things get to you. It's gonna, like, Mercury and Scorpio is kind of going for the jugular on a lot of stuff, and the moon in Leo is very sensitive. So, you know, just try not to. We've all been through a shitty year. We're all really sensitive, and I just think on October 11th, we're all going to be really extra sensitive. And so just try to be more empathetic, try to be more caring. I know that sounds weird coming from me, but just listening more. And honestly, with Mercury and Scorpio, it's better to not pull the trigger than to pull the trigger, because once you pull it, there ain't no going back, and you got to deal with whatever the fuck you just did. So I would just try to play it cool on Sunday. And that's this week. Like I said, comparative to, I feel like, the last few weeks, like this week, yes, we do have Mercury opposite Uranus this week, so things are kind of unhinged in a sense. But the most part, this week's pretty okay. It's next week, so check this out. Next week again starts a little bit, you know, okay, and then it just gets super intense by like next Sunday. Holy shit, next Sunday. Anyway, next week, Venus sextiles Mercury next week. Then we have the Mars-Sun opposition. So the highlight of this Mars retrograde. Mercury stations retrograde next week. We have the new moon in Libra next week, the one that's like squaring Saturn exactly. We have Mars squaring Jupiter next week. We have Venus trining Jupiter next week. We have Mercury going opposite Uranus for the second time during the Mercury retrograde. And we have Venus going opposite Neptune next week. Next week is like everything happens next week. So this week is just more of a time to kind of get your, it's the night before game day, right? Just calm down. Don't get too heated. Save your energy for next week. Next week will be crazy though. So with that being said, I think that's what I got for you guys. So again, thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. And I'll be seeing you next week.